right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 13th board meeting of the Comox Valley Regional District. As we always do, we're going to begin by acknowledging today we do our business on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And it's also our practice, we'll read out one of the calls to action. Today's call to action 85, Media and Reconciliation. We call upon the Aboriginal People's Television Network as an independent nonprofit broadcaster with programming by, for, and about Aboriginal peoples to support reconciliation, including, but not limited to, continuing to provide leadership in programming and organizational culture that reflects the diverse cultures, languages, and perspective of Aboriginal peoples, and continuing to develop media initiatives that inform and educate the Canadian public and connect Aboriginal people and Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Canadians. And there's a recommendation for a closed meeting. That we'll move to that closed meeting following the open meeting, and we'll just vote on that. Anyone opposed to the recommendation? And that carries. Next, we have minutes from December 9th, 2025 for adoption. Are there any questions? Okay, anyone opposed to adoption? And that carries. Then we have business arising from the minutes, and this would be the delegation follow-up on the situation table. And for this, I'll just pass it over to our CAO, James Warren.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the board. As is our practice, the board doesn't typically consider action with respect to delegations at the meeting at which they present. However, we do provide the follow-up opportunity at subsequent board meetings. At the December 9th meeting, a delegation was received from Dana Forrestgren, requesting consideration for the CVRD to serve as the fiscal host for the Comox Valley Situation Table, partnership with the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General for administering the Situation Table is not identified within the board's strategic priorities and does not correspond directly with the CVRD service. However, should the board wish to direct staff resources to consider the request within the board's community partnerships policy framework, resolution can be introduced at this time.
Right, and I see Director Brown. There's a whole, that's number 44 or 16. Do you recognize any of those numbers? Let's just see what happens. There we go.
It worked. Good job. Thanks for that follow-up. It's my impression from the delegation we had from the situation table recently that the board is generally supportive of this service, and that they are, in order to continue, in need of a fiscal host. And we do have a social planner. So I'm hoping that we can ask our staff to come back with a proposal about just letting us know what that would look like in terms of time and money and appropriate service.
Is that a
motion?
Are you moving that?
I'll make that motion.
All right, so that's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Director Minions. And Director Hillian, you had your light on. I'm assuming you want to speak on this. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. It was never clear to me why the previous fiscal host was no longer serving in that function. And it was also not clear to me that there was any actual requirement that a local government organization needed to be solicited to become a fiscal host. So I'm hoping that if our social planner does in fact look into this, which I think is an excellent idea, that they can clarify that. And I also think that there's a possibility for an organization like the Social Planning Society to potentially take this on. I think that's something that should be explored. I think the engagement with the community to problem solve around this it makes sense, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the CVRD needs to take on any sort of fiscal host arrangement if that can be provided otherwise. Thanks.
I'm going to check with our CAO. I don't think we require any amendments to the motion to reflect Director Hillian's thoughts. I see nodding from the mover, from Director Brown. So, and if you want to say a few words.
Only that we would look to your recently approved policy, and those are all considerations that I think we'd want to understand, so the board has a full picture. The purpose of the policy is really to give the board that full picture of what it means to take on partnerships whether it's as a fiscal host or as a grant funding provider or recipient. So I think all of those comments you provided are important to understand and present to the board for a decision.
All right, I'm just going to see if there's any further comments online or in the room. And seeing none, the resolution is on the table. It's on the screen. Is there anyone opposed? All right, thanks everyone, and that carries. Sorry, we'll now move into delegations, and the first, sorry, this is the, could you just grab that back? Because thanks, that would be Mosaic is the first delegation. It's a 10-minute, and there's a timer that'll be on just over there. And I'll, I don't know if staff have any comments, but otherwise, you're, if you just press the button at the bottom of the microphone, kind of on the base, then I can turn it on. It'll flash. There you go. Perfect. All right. Thanks very much.
Testing. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having us here this afternoon. My name is Jimmy Hodgson. I'm a registered professional forester and the VP of Sustainability and Chief Forester with Mosaic, alongside my colleague here, Colin Cosman, who I'll let to formally introduce himself here in a few minutes. Just gonna cover a quick overview, what we want to talk about here today. Basically an update, Mosaic overview. We'll touch on sustainability, drinking water and wildfire management, as well as recreation and community partnerships. A little bit about who we are for those that are not familiar. We are 100% Canadian owned. We do operate primarily here on Vancouver Island, stemming from Victoria all the way through to Port Hardy here on the island, covering the Sunshine Coast as well, and as far north as Haida Gwaii. We do manage public and private lands in that area and employ over 2,000 individuals. That includes staff and contract personnel. Those contractors range from small little pairs, 2 or 3 people, to as large as a couple of dozen folks with some of the larger contractors. All of the wood products from those operations do serve local mills. As you can see on the screen there, more than 50 mills here on the coast and the lower mainland, before any of those forest products are offered up to international opportunities. Just a bit on the local economy. As you can see, our contributions are rather significant. Across Vancouver Island, including the valley here itself. Forestry continues to play a key driver in the BC economy, especially here locally on the island and across a lot of the coastal communities that we do operate, from Victoria all the way to the north end of the island. All of which are very invested in our success, whether that's the contractors or staff themselves. There's many staff that live, work, and play here in the valley amongst a lot of our contractors. There's a couple of contractors I would just like to note. Timberline and Sitka as examples in helping us succeed in our reforestation efforts, planting millions of trees annually for us here on the island and on the coast. Others like Stonecroft, Meraki, and Wolf Lake Logging, integral in our planning and harvesting opportunities, working for us on a daily basis. A note on our Indigenous partnerships and the progression here. We are gold level Paris certified. That is, we are the first and only private timberlands company in Canada to do so. That is a partnership accreditation in Indigenous relations that helps guides everything that we do, how we strengthen our relationships, how we bring them to the next level and work collaboratively. Specifically here in the Comox Valley, we are working with the Comox Nation to expand on economic development opportunities, exploring unique opportunities around treaties, and building capacity, whether that's scholarships, professional training programs, equipment, or other opportunities that do arise from time to time. And lastly here for myself, just an outlook on our strategic transformation. Bottom line, we are evolving. We are adapting to today's needs, and we are evolving our practices more into a diversified land management company, not only for our owners, but for the British Columbians whose pension investments depend on our success. Not only the staff, but all of the contractors that we do employ on a regular basis. Our staple, our timberlands operations, still focused, still top of mind, supplying that consistent product to our local mills, guided by our adaptive practices. Expanding on real estate, and then starting to explore opportunities in renewable energy and natural capital. Natural capital beyond our Big Coast Carbon Project into watershed, conservation, and biodiversity opportunities. And also looking to expand upon our recreation and access strategies as well. And trying to come up to that balanced opportunity, not only for all of the communities that we do operate in and around, but for the company itself as well. And Colin will touch on that here in a little bit. I'll pass it over to Colin now.
Great, thanks, Jimmy. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colin Kotzman, Manager of Community Relations. Just want to take a minute and talk about sustainable forest management and what that looks like for Mosaic. So certainly have independent third-party environmental certification, which is Sustainable Forestry Initiative on our lands. Also want to mention that all our activities on our private forest lands is managed by professionals. So that includes foresters, biologists, geologists, hydrologists, operational specialists. So lots of professional oversight. Also want to mention and touch on last year we planted close to 9 million seedlings. So that's obviously a key part of sustainability. Also worth noting is science guides all our decisions on our land base. So we work certainly with local universities and local communities focusing on research related to climate change and drinking watersheds. And last thing I'll mention with this slide in sustainability, we have over 30 acts and regulations that apply to our operations. In terms of watershed management, so protecting water quality is certainly central to our forest management practices, sustainability commitments, and community partnerships. So we certainly work on a lot of different advisory tables in the Comox Valley. That includes the CVRD Watershed Advisory Group, along with the Perseverance Watershed Initiative. We work lots with local government, regional government, sharing information and working with purveyors. So have our annual meetings and lots of touch points through the year. And then again, science guides our professional prescriptions, and we also have a water quality monitoring program. So lots happening around drinking watersheds. Just for the photos, the lower right is a tour we did with the Village of Cumberland Mayor and Council. The photos at the Mosaic U-Rock hut in the Trail Network. Upper photo on the right is a tour we did with recently with MLA Brennan Day and U-Rock. That's at Perseverance Creek. And then really want to highlight, we're here to collaborate with the Village of Cumberland on Perseverance Creek through the Perseverance Watershed Initiative. So the photo on the lower left is the issues, long-term legacy issues related to Perseverance Creek. And so we're certainly working with Village of Cumberland on that legacy issue and the funding they have to resolve that. I'll just touch on wildfire prevention and response. So unfortunately in 2025, more than 90% of the fires on our land base were public cause. So the photo on the lower right is Mount Underwood, the largest fire on Vancouver Island in I think about 100 years. So fortunately, we have a partnership and protection agreement with the BC Wildfire Service. That's really critical for fighting fires. We also have a wildfire preparedness and response plans, lots of work with local communities and regional government, local fire chiefs. And throughout the wildfire season, all our staff and contractors are trained in wildfire preparedness, and we could have more than 100 water tenders or fire trucks basically on our land base to be prepared for wildfires. Just want to touch on community partnerships. So we're certainly grateful for all the strong relationships we've built across Vancouver Island. Last year in 2024, generally annually, we support more than 150 organizations with close to $1 million per year for community, environmental, and education initiatives. So just as examples, Mosaic Season of Giving, we donated $51,000 in December to a lot of the local food banks on Vancouver Island. We support the Cumberland Community School Society, work with groups like Fanny Bay Salmon Enhancement Society. But others I just want to note in the Comox Valley, we've been a longtime supporter of the Solom River Restoration Society, Pacific Salmon Foundation, that does a lot of work here, the Marmot Recovery Foundation, which is obviously based on Vancouver Island, and certainly want to mention YANA, which is an important organization here. Just have two more slides here. So want to touch on recreation access. That's a really important part of what we do in supporting communities and tourism. So just touch on the access agreement and partnership we have with Mount Washington Alpine Resort. So if you're Nordic skiing or alpine skiing at Mount Washington, a lot of those lands are private managed forest land. So certainly proud of that relationship. The photo on the upper right is, again, the Mosaic U-Rock hut. So that was, I'll say, grand opening was about a year ago. And then some of the bigger events that happen in the Comox Valley, the BC Bike Race is maybe a really good one to share, where we see about 1,000 people come to the village of Cumberland area, stay for a few days, participate in the BC Bike Race, spend their money here, and lots of folks want to move here because of all the amenities here and the trail networks that exist here. So Mosaic is certainly proud to support the BC Bike Race, Trek Gravel Series, MOMAR, and other events like that, along with our 14 not-for-profit campgrounds, snowmobile agreements, ATV agreements, and some others in there. Just want to mention several months ago, we
Just wanted to say that we have run out of time. Maybe if you could just sort of draw it to a close. I don't want to cut you right off. But
Sure, thank you.
course.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're certainly looking at what we're doing for public recreation on our land base. We've hired some third-party consultants to explore ideas and some of the results from the public survey that we did. So looking forward to providing results on that when they become available. So thank you for everyone's time. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really appreciated all of this, and you've definitely generated a few questions. So we'll just start going through
Great.
those. So,
Thank you.
Director Arbor, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for coming over for an annual. I'm not always the kindness to your delegation, but I do my best, and I'm going to try a new tack today. I still, on the good news front, Beaufort watershed stewards are done with their watershed assessments, which they finished the Trent River and showed serious concerns around cumulative impact assessments in your watershed. So I think there's some work to be done there. And once again, I will encourage you to consider FSC certification. And but now on the positive news, I'm also looking for a partnership, and I think a couple of places where we've struggled to hit our stride. One we've never really tried. So I've been really interested in your recreation work that you're doing right now. There's been a lot of work in the past year, which you could have gone on more if you could have stayed on that slide. The regional district, we still don't have a trail use agreement or anything like that. So I would be quite happy to explore what that could look like, because in Cumberland has one, but in the south of the area, we still have usage on your lands, and it might be good to look at the long-term opportunities. The other one I'd like to mention, and it's great that you have your chief forester here too, is we've created a new regional park service, and there's definitely parcels of land that will be interested, but so far what I'm hearing is the the parcels that we're interested in, you may not be interested in selling. I'm hoping that we can make some headway on that. I know your priority for land purchases is usually, as you said in your presentation, around land development and things like that. But we'll be looking to add some conservation pieces in the Comox Valley outside of the village of Cumberland for once. And and I'd be really happy if your team could at least provide us feedback as to whether there could be opportunity for pure land conservation. I know you've been trying to hold on to a lot of your lands, but there's, as the valley grows, I think there's places that are probably not as desirable to logs, and that would provide both recreational and conservation values for the communities. And we're starting to tool ourselves to make those purchases. So see, I had a new and bright side to myself today.
Great. Thank you for your comments, Director Arbor. Yeah, maybe I'll touch on a few things and Jimmy can step in. You know, we're certainly always open to having conversations about different access agreements. I think, you know, one of the more notable ones that was signed in the last roughly 2 years with Aerosmith Cycling Club for the Hammerfest area. But if there are other groups that are interested in access agreements, they can certainly reach out to myself or if they've been talking to other people at Mosaic. But and if you want to share information with me, that's great. In terms of you know, ownership and purchase of different lands, I haven't been part of those conversations, but you know, I'd echo the same thing. You know, if there needs to be more conversation about opportunities and collaborative work, working together, happy to have those, continue those conversations if that's helpful. And you know, I can certainly circle back to a few people on our side and understand more what those conversations might have looked like in the past. Yep, thank you. Jimmy, I don't know if you had anything to add.
Very well covered off, Colin. From a FSC certification perspective, like I mentioned, we are in an evolution state right now with our management regime. FSC is currently not on the table as part of that structure, but it's an evolving process. Not to say that it wouldn't be something we look at further on in the year or next year. Great point. We'll definitely take that back to the team. And from the real estate perspective, Colin covered off that quite well. Let's continue the conversation.
All right, thanks very much. Go to Director Brown.
Thanks. Happy New Year. Nice to see you both. And I'll just start with obviously some appreciation for our partnership in Cumberland, not only with the land use agreement, but the work with PWI, which for those of you who don't know, is a way of collecting data to fully understand the function of Perseverance watershed. Yeah, and so thank you for that. I'm curious, given the number of stories we're getting coming out of the forest industry and mill closures and forestries dying and the having watched it decrease in its not only employment but availability of timber over the last couple of decades. I wonder about how I love the fact that you're talking about, you're looking at how we can do this differently, not just to deal with climate change, but to deal with how the industry is kind of altering. And maybe not so much here on Vancouver Island, although the North Island surely is saying that that is happening. But I think there's a way to reinvent forestry that both restores the land and continues to offer employment and that industry to thrive on Vancouver Island. But that would have to include a reduction in or a more diverse tree planting regime. So more hardwood and leaving large woody debris on the ground to soak up water and provide that, you know, long-term fire mitigation, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole range of sort of restorative forestry practices that I think probably go beyond FSC, but might actually be more helpful to us in preventing those issues. And I wonder if you could comment on that, and probably you, Jimmy. And then it would be really great for us to understand fully what the employment numbers are in the Comox Valley so that we can speak to that to not only our constituents, but to the province. If you had those numbers handy, that'd be great. You contractors and employees, I think.
For your first question around basically the biodiversity of species, we'll call it. Again, a big part of our evolution and really challenging ourselves to take a deep dive on all of our practices. We're actually in a bit of a refresh right now in our silviculture strategy. Deep green is actually how we coin it. And part of that is to not only look at our silviculture practices, but look at things we're not doing, look at what others are doing in the Pacific Northwest, over in New Zealand, Chile, anywhere really that can help us inspire a change, a positive change that's not only adding value for the asset, for the company, but also value for the community. And you touched on a big part of it around fire resilience. We're learning a lot from the Mount Underwood fire, how it moves through different stand types and whether deciduous had a play in it or not. More to come from that. We're probably going to take the rest of this year to really digest what happened and how fire spread. And there are some deciduous sites in there that are telling us a little bit of a story. So we're looking at that from a stand management perspective and how we can carry more deciduous on the landscape for multiple values, whether it's fire resilience, biodiversity, and also from a cost savings perspective around stand treatment and activities that follow suit after our reforestation program. So it's on the table. It'll be part of the refresh and how it gets incorporated for sure. The numbers locally, I don't have offhand. Do you? We'll have to get back to you on that one.
All right, thanks very much. I'm going to go to Director McCollum.
Thank you. Two quick questions, if that's all right. My first question, you alluded to a preference for having fiber processed locally when available before shipping overseas. And I'm just wondering if you could share what percentage of harvested fiber on Vancouver Island is processed here.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. So today, roughly 60% is sold domestically. We're required by law to advertise all our volume domestically for any domestic customers before we consider any international customers. So, certainly tariffs and weird political things down south come into play with the push and pull of demand for fiber. Certainly a lot of sawmills are having a tough time right now in British Columbia, so that does play into it. But if you're after the number, today it's roughly 60% would be domestic.
And domestic is mostly BC, I would assume. We don't.
Yes,
there's a lot of logs
that's right.
Beyond.
We wouldn't send
province.
logs to Alberta or any other parts of Canada.
Okay, that's a lot better than I would have thought. So
Mhm.
thanks for that number. The other question I had was around just forestry practices, conservation, watershed protection, high elevation tree stands, all of those kind of sensitive habitats that are of concern to the public. And I'm just wondering if you could share any practices that have changed in the last 5 to 10 years due to a public pressure, company policy, or change in regulations.
Sure, thank you for that. Certainly our professionals and some of the prescriptions they prescribe for different areas includes increased riparian buffers for either fish or drinking water. But, I think for maybe the most notable thing, the professionals is one piece, but our Big Coast Forest Climate Initiative is certainly an important one that we didn't really touch on through our presentation.
It was covered last time.
That's setting aside 40,000 hectares for carbon. But we are looking at other opportunities around natural assets. Jimmy touched on it a little bit, but there's certainly a big push globally for natural assets. So, there's a lot of different moving parts, new things happening in that space. So we have different professionals hired, different consultants looking at different opportunities around conservation.
And I believe you guys did present on that carbon initiative. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but that was earmarking a delay in cutting, not a permanent cut for carbon credits. Is that right? Or
So it's a commitment to not touch that area for at least 40 years. That changes over time, but that's certainly a huge leap forward and a innovative step with a whole new program around carbon credits and that kind of initiative. So the timelines are still, like for future that could likely extend much longer than that.
okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And another question from Director Robert.
Sorry, I just can't resist, but she brought up Big Coast because there was an early critique of it a little bit. And I know there were some issues with your Big Coast project, and if board members are interested in reading about it, am I correct that it's just on the methodology? Some of the riparian areas that would have been already protected were included or something like that? But it's led to a change in provincial policy around carbon credits. So there's some good outcomes, but I don't know what you can say and cannot say. It's just
Sure, maybe I can chime in initially and Jimmy can jump in here, but there were certainly different calculations that the government used around carbon that came into play. Mosaic was one of the first companies to really jump into this. So this is very new, but we're working through that data where we've hired new consultants and professionals, and over the short term, we will be reassessing and relaunching 2.0. So it's just a bit of time required to ensure that everything is correct and right, and we're moving forward on the right foot. So Jimmy, I don't know if you have to add to that.
No, you nailed it. Good answer.
All right,
Thank you
well,
for the
thanks.
question.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions. I did have one myself, which is that we just finished a meeting of the Recreation Commission, in which we looked at grant requests by community groups. And I know that you fund, I think it was 150 different groups on Vancouver Island. It was, my understanding is that there you tend to fund around interests you have, like food, the environment, education, and Indigenous culture. And I'm wondering if recreation groups that are focused largely on outdoor recreation, like forest, mountain, that sort of thing, would be well placed perhaps to contact you. If you could speak just for a minute about how you select organizations, what your criteria are.
Yeah, that's really great. So thank you very much for bringing that up. That's a good plug for our sponsorship and donations committee. So anybody that's interested from a community, from a recreation group, whatever, Jimmy sits on the committee as well. There's about 8 or 9 of us. It's a simple link on our website and a 1-pager to fill out. The committee meets every quarter generally and reviews applicants. So if anyone in the room knows of organizations that are interested in submitting, we would certainly welcome any submissions. So thank you for that plug.
Okay, well, always happy to help community organizations find new ways of funding things. And that's raised one more question from Director Round. Go ahead.
Thanks. I appreciate the work you're doing with recreational access, and we had some very concerned community members. As you know, we are surrounded by forest in Cumberland, and as you may also know, we have a large community of dirt bike enthusiasts in our community, and there were people living on the edges of Cumberland watching those dirt bikes go out and terrified that they were going to start a fire. And I know you have agreements in place with ATV users, et cetera. And do you restrict though, like, I don't know how you'd ever manage this, but how do they have spark resistors? Like how are we managing for fire and motorized vehicles?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. For the agreements we provide to motorized groups like ATV groups, part of the benefit of that is working with them and controlling when they're accessing our land base. So in the springtime or the summer, when we start hitting high and extreme, we start restricting access agreement holders onto our land base. Because motorized use has the highest risk, those are the clubs that start getting restricted first, whereas hiking clubs and mountain bike clubs would be further down the list. But we increase our patrols. We have calls with the fire chief in Cumberland, all our fire protection staff and security staff start working more and more with community fire halls and fire chiefs and that kind of thing to make sure that we're controlling that access a bit more and keeping our lands and communities safe. So, yep, thank you.
All right, so seeing no further questions, thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon. Wishing you a good evening. Thanks very
Great,
much.
thank you so much.
All right, and our next delegation is from Stepping Stones Recovery House, and that's Tammy Goff and Sean Vincent, so come on up. If you hit the button, there's a button on the base, if you hit that, and then there we go.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Crystal.
Good afternoon, Chair, Directors, and members of the Comox Valley Regional District. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Tammy Goff, and I am here on behalf of Stepping Stones Recovery House for Women's Society. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the collective responsibility represented in the room. While our experiences and perspectives may differ, we are connected by a common concern for the health, safety, and well-being of our community. Stepping Stones is a women-centered recovery home that provides a safe, stable, and supportive environment for women rebuilding their lives from substance use, trauma, and instability. At its core, Stepping Stones is about dignity, accountability, and hope. We walk alongside women as they learn to trust themselves again, reconnect with their families, and re-enter into community in healthy and meaningful ways. The women who come through our doors are often carrying trauma, intergenerational trauma, systemic barriers, homelessness, family separation, and the ongoing impacts of toxic drug supply. Recovery is not a straight line, and it is not quick. What Stepping Stones offers is time, structure, and compassionate support, things that are increasingly rare in today's systems. We work closely with local First Nations communities and supporting Indigenous women who are seeking culturally safe recovery spaces. These relationships built on trust and mutual respect, and they are a vital part of who we are as an organization. We understand that healing does not happen in isolation, it happens in community. Stepping Stones operates with very limited resources. We rely heavily on the generosity of the community to keep our doors open. Food bank donations help feed the women in our care. Volunteers and donated services assist with repairs and maintenance. Local supporters step in when appliances break, when transportation is needed, and emergency gaps arise. This community support has been and continues to be extraordinary. It speaks volumes to the compassion that exists in the Comox Valley, and we are deeply grateful for it. However, reliance on goodwill alone also creates restraints. Because of limited funding and infrastructure, our ability to grow, to stabilize, and to plan long-term is restricted. We often are in a position of reacting rather than proactively building. Maintenance gets deferred, program expansion is paused, opportunities to support more women or support them longer remain just out of reach. The need in our region far exceeds our current capacity. We are seeing more women seeking recovery support, more complex needs, and fewer appropriate spaces for them to land. Without wider local community access and stronger partnerships, organizations like ours are stretched thin, even as the demand continues to rise. That said, Stepping Stones is not standing still. We have recently taken intentional steps to strengthen our governance and sustainability. We've added 2 experienced business professionals to our board of directors, bringing new perspectives in financial oversight, strategic planning, and organizational growth. We are also in the process of potentially adding another board member with complementary expertise. This shift reflects our commitment to moving Stepping Stones from survival mode into sustainability while staying rooted in our values and mission. We believe recovery housing is a critical piece of the broader housing, health, and community wellness continuum. When women are supported in recovery, the ripple effects are significant. Reduced strain on emergency services, improved family reunification, increased community safety, and long-term economic and social benefits. Stepping Stones has proven what is possible with limited means and strong community backing. Imagine what could be achieved with broader local access, stable resources, and collaborative support. We want to continue being a place where women can learn safely. We want to grow responsibly. We want to be part of a coordinated regional response to addiction, housing, and recovery. Thank you for taking the time, and I'll now pass it over to Sean.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. I'm Sean Vincent. I'm usually here before most of you for other reasons, but this is actually really nice to be here today as a board member of Stepping Stones and being a part of, the good work that's happening over there. I've been on the board for about 3 years, and I've known Tammy for about 10 years and another board member for around the same amount of time. And when I got approached, I kind of wondered what I might, be able to assist with. And, it kind of unfolded quite quickly, just about the operational stuff and, the challenges of trying to keep the doors open but talking about the future and, but not being able to do both effectively at the same time. So we've got some new board members and, we're hoping to add another one with some experience in the community. We landed here today. We have strategic planning meetings, and in the fall, I mentioned to Tammy that we should come and just do some public awareness. And, so we landed here with that. I got a call from Jake about, some funding that was available, but full disclosure, our initial reason for coming here today was just actually for public awareness. So the board is functions to assist Tammy and the operations of the house. And, we've started with that strategic planning committee. We started to plan for the future. So, some of the future things that we'd like to do for Stepping Stones in the group is right now, when the girls come to the house, they're there to get well. They're there to learn a new way to live. But like so many different areas of our community, housing is a real challenge. So people get well, and then a lot of times they have to go back out into the big wide world. And a lot of times they're going back into the same kind of environments that they were in before. So one of the things for the strategic plan is for a second house. So, like a safe house to live, but outside of that first initial program. And, this is where someone like myself can help out with planning and looking at properties and, that the budgeting for the future. And we've got some other board members that are really, really good at that stuff, and getting the word out. I'm going to keep it short because Tammy's giving you guys the real meat and potatoes of what Stepping Stones does. But, I want to just say this, that I've listened and seen the stories of success and seeing ladies get their families back, their children back, their families back, have relationships with parents and, grandparents. There's nothing better than seeing that. And, I'm going to stay a part of it because of that. So I'll just finish with this. Like Tammy's applying for the grant and, it would go to good use. We brought in a fellow, Joe Roberts, Skid Row CEO. A fellow pushed a shopping cart across Canada for awareness for homelessness. Fascinating fellow. He speaks all over the world. And one of the things that really, really caught me was that statistically, according to this gentleman who seems to be well versed in this realm, that when you give people a roof over their head and a key to a door, any door that's safe, dry, shower, 80% of some of the issues that they had disappear. And for these ladies at Stepping Stones, they're coming to Stepping Stones to seek a new way of life. And a lot of times they're coming there to seek a safe place, safe environment. And so that's what we see for Stepping Stones. If we can partner with other local businesses and local government, that we'd like to have that second house to keep people captivated as long as possible before they can kind of integrate right back out into the world. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. And just Tammy, Sean, and the board members who are here, just thank you for the time that you give to this important work. And now we'll get to a few questions. Director Grant.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, I was just reading through this, and it looks like a really great thing that you guys got going here. My initial question was like, where do people stay when they come? But I think you mentioned you have a house. So how many members would you have, or how many people would be at that house at any given time?
We have 6 first stage beds and 2 transitional beds. So our goal is to be able to have just first stage in one house and second stage in another.
Okay.
So we have 8 to answer your
And
question.
so is that enough, or is that not even close?
No, it's not even close.
not even
We
close.
have an extensive wait list all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And unfortunately, some people end up falling off that wait list because they're waiting so long.
Mhm. Okay, and so my next question is, you mentioned in here about possible grant funding. Do you know what grant that is, and what is it a is it a regional district, or is it something else? Maybe Jake would know the
It's
answer.
the HSS funding.
Okay, and so
Yeah.
do you need any help from us for?
No, actually, I've got that grant completed almost. I just preparing the budget and the work
Okay,
plan, and then I can submit it for the 20th deadline.
okay,
Yeah,
perfect. All right. Well, anything else we can do for you would be happy to do. Thanks.
we appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Go to Director Harper.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so thank you for coming. So on the public awareness front, you can take my box because I didn't know about you. And I know we've worked a lot with and funded a lot with the Comox Valley Transition Society, and I've been a big champion of that for the very reason you list, and that you spoke so well about. And the good news is, yes, we do have from 2014 we started the homelessness service, and then we've increased the amount of funding, and now we're starting a new initiative on the housing front. And this is a board that I've seen like really step up in the social space. So that's the good news. It would be great to see the town of Comox join fully in those efforts financially, because currently it's everybody but Comox that contributes. But we'll revisit that next term. I'd be very supportive of an application like that. So we'll see what comes in. But you coming today was very useful to understand what you're working on, and you seem to have a very specific need, very tangible. So that ticks a bunch of boxes as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. We'll go to Director Helene next.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much. I was looking at your website, and it talks a bit about you moving from what I understood you were before as primarily a faith-based organization to perhaps being a little bit more diverse.
Correct.
Right. And I just wondered if that has also involved greater engagement with other addiction-serving organizations in the community. I think I heard you say in your presentation that you were looking to get more engaged with the bigger picture of service provision. And so, for example, I would be interested to know if you've got a working relationship with Transition Society, which does have some second stage housing, and some of the other addictions service providers in the community.
We do, yes. We work closely with Watch AA as well. And we do have some of our women end up putting applications in with Transition Society for Dairies Place. They do serve like women fleeing from abuse over and above everything else, but they have taken 1 or 2 of our clients in the recent past. Yeah, so we're working on all those community relationships. When Stepping Stones first opened in 2008, it was opened by a Christian couple, and it was ran as a Christian ministry. And I think that's why like the exposure to the community wasn't so big, and people didn't really know who we were. And when I was voted into the position in September of 2022, that's when we shifted from faith-based to more recovery-based and a holistic approach that kind of meets like the diversity of people's needs.
Okay, well, I hope you're feeling that's been a good move. It sounds to me like a greater outreach to the community is perhaps possible on that basis. Not to take anything away from the good work that people did to set the stage for you, but thanks very much for being here today and for what you're doing in the community.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. And Director Minions, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Tammy and Sean, for your presentation. Just want to recognize, while we're not part of HSS, currently we have provided letters of support and financial donation before and past. So just wishing you the best of luck with your HSS application. And I know I've looked into what the organization does, and it's really fantastic. So thank you for doing the community awareness, and hopefully the town of Comox can support through our avenues that we do support affordable housing.
Thank you.
Well, I'd say this has been a really successful piece of awareness raising, and I've got a background working in family law, so I do know well the work that you do. But in order to get it sort of perhaps more widely known still, putting my courtney counselor hat on, perhaps you might want to consider coming to each of the municipalities, the 3 municipalities, and sharing the same information with everyone. So there it just reaches more people and brings more awareness. But Sean, Tammy, and other board members, just thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you
we
for
really
your
appreciate
time.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and we're now moving into reports, and the first is regarding Service 621, Bain Sound Electoral Areas B and C Parks and Greenways Service Review Initiation. Okay, so we have. See you later, folks. That's on the table for receipt, and I'll pass it to our CAO.
Thanks, Chair. Jake Martins, General Manager of Corporate Services, has a brief overview of this report for consideration, and then the recommendation is to follow. Jake, over to you.
Thank you, James, and through the chair. Yes, this report brings forward the formal notice of initiation of a service review for the electoral areas services, or electoral areas Parks and Greenways service. The service review has been initiated by Director Arbor in consideration of the service equity concerns that have been a point of discussion and debate over the course of this term. Service reviews are provided by the provincial legislation to enable participants to seek resolutions to disagreements and conflicts that arise pertaining to the fundamentals of services. The service establishment bylaw in this case does not define the process specifically to be provided, but does identify a sort of review timeline. In this case, staff then are suggesting that we follow the broad statutory process, which outlines the general terms of meeting dates and the conduct of those meetings in the early stages of this process. Staff are also recommending a third-party facilitator be engaged, and that the preliminary meeting of the service participants and the board chair be convened within that timeline. That body would then consider the scope of the review, the problems to be addressed, the options to be considered, and the process to be followed. The letter of initiation notes the intention to withdraw from the service, and so this may be an option that's considered through the service review process, but it's worth noting that the formal service withdrawal provisions may only be invoked following that service review process. Irrespective of the eventual outcome, the service review process and the analysis and the options that are considered will be both productive and necessary for the service participants to work through these matters. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Jake. It's on the table. Director Arbor, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I had a question on the 2 options, really, 1 versus 2, and at what point would we, like, is this a decision for today? Because usually when we have options, it's like we make the decision on the day, but I didn't know if there was merit in having a first meeting with a consultant to determine which option we actually pursue, because it's hard to measure at this stage goodwill and sort of preferred outcomes and how much of a gap, like in a negotiation. So I'm just wondering if you're looking for decisions on this today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so in my opinion, you don't need to make a decision on this in this moment. Certainly, it's at the pleasure of the board. If the conditions were felt that they were there or present, that you could direct a particular action, and that has been done in the past with other sort of service review initiatives that we've undertaken. But in this case, if we were to go to the preliminary meeting, that doesn't eliminate the option then to seek an expedited process or any kind of resolution to that at that point. Does
So-
that answer your question?
So we could pass one, but at the first meeting realize that we might be okay with the expedited process. Is that what?
In theory, that could happen. Yeah, depending on the feedback of the participants in that meeting. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll let the other participants in the service weigh in if they so wish, but I'm comfortable in that case with either option.
Thanks, Director Arbor. Anyone else wishing to make comment? We're still on receipt. Okay, we'll dispense with receipt. Anyone opposed? Carries as recommendation. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the recommendation? Anyone opposed? And that carries. All right, next, Black Creek Oyster Bay minutes for December 8th. Thank you. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Electoral, that carries. Electoral Area Services, December 8th minutes. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Carries. Sewage Commission, December 9th minutes. Questions? Anyone opposed? That carries. Water Committee. Seconded, perfect. Okay, any questions? Anyone opposed? And that carries. And Electoral Area Service Committee, January 12th, 2026. Thank you very much. And so it's recommendation 1 that we're going with. Okay, and this is a vote of the areas. It's been moved and been seconded. Any comments? All right, anyone opposed to the recommendation? And that carries. Recommendation 2. Okay, this is also a vote of the areas. Any comments? Anyone opposed? And that carries. Okay, first it's been moved and seconded. Oh, thank you very much. Director Morin.
Great, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was curious when I read the agenda, I was curious about this third one, which I know the votes are just the electoral areas directors. And I guess I was trying to refresh my memory. I know that there was the process around designated authority or, not having as many votes come to the board from electoral areas. But I guess I was curious about something that involves the regional growth strategy, because I thought that was something that normally used to come to the full board. So I just wanted some clarification on that piece, because I think that we don't have as many things coming to the full board now, which is great because the electoral areas want to have their control and which is appropriate. But I thought with the regional growth strategy, which is obviously a regional service, that there was a difference there. Thanks.
Thanks. I can try to cover that. You're right. The Electoral Area Services Committee does have some delegated authority, and so you're seeing less and less decisions come forward to the board. Many of the planning and land use matters do still come to the board. That's why you see these recommendations here. This recommendation number 3 is about a rezoning application, and it has relationship to the OCP and the RGS, but it isn't a decision under the RGS. It is a rezoning application, which is a rural areas planning matter for consideration.
Okay.
So
it would be more if there was an actual request to change the RGS.
yeah, if there was an RGS review, if there was any kind of policy consideration of
Right.
the RGS itself, and that would come through the board. It wouldn't
So-
originate at the EASC.
With this particular example, excuse me, if the decision was made to go against the RGS or something like that, that still wouldn't come to the
Yeah, because the
board.
the application is for a rezoning,
Okay,
a zoning amendment. Yeah.
all right, thank you.
If I understand correctly, the RGS was applied here, but it was not. And as a consequence, that's why it does not need to be full board voting. Right.
Yeah, the rezoning application has some considerations that need to be analyzed underneath the RGS framework as a framework, but it's the application to amend the zoning bylaw itself that's the nature of the question.
Okay, great. And I'll go to Director Arbor. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good point from Dr. Murray. I would note that while the board is not involved, any legal action in regards to decision like that would come back to the full board. So I'm glad that some of the municipal councillors are actually looking at some of these things. So great. I would also note that adding to James, the other thing that hasn't happened is in the rural areas, we haven't done a major OCP or zoning bylaw update. And so that we've got a few things to look at next term around around that and provincial policy and in relation to that and everything else, which is where this thing came from, the 514 troubles.
All right, thanks for that discussion. It's been moved and seconded. So it's voted the areas. Anyone opposed? And that carries. Thanks very much. Moving now to bylaws and resolutions. Bylaw number 896 for first and second reading. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Anyone opposed? And 896 for third reading. Okay. All right. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Receives third reading. And for final adoption, bylaw number 901. Any questions on that? Anyone opposed? And that carries. And new business correspondence dated December 17th from move receipt. So do you want to speak to that briefly? Is there anything particular you want to address?
Nothing in particular to address. Mike Atkins from the Airport Commission is asking for a letter of support from local government and Comox First Nation leaders, and so the regional district can consider providing such a letter of support. I understand the commission seeks grant funding for some of its capital equipment and operations on a regular basis, and so this would provide that support to the authority. As opposed to a chair's discretion in writing such a letter of support?
Okay, sorry, there's the requested action. I just wasn't scrolling down mentally far enough. So we're on receipt. Seeing no questions there, we can dispense with receipt, and there's the requested action. Yeah, thanks very much. Anyone opposed to the requested action? All right, and that carries, and now we'll move in camera.